So, are you ready for my story?
I am.
So, I'm gonna have to read it. So I'll be looking at a weird spot because I gotta read it. Because I want to get it right.
Yeah.
Um, but I am gonna set it up just a tiny bit because I've been to Scotland a couple times, and my brother has lived there for many years, and we visited him, and I visited a couple times, and I was there. I think it was last year, maybe 18 months ago. I'm not sure, but uh, I was there for a while, and my brother and I decided to go on a bus tour to Skye, and it's going through Inverness, Loch Ness, some of the sites, right? The
Yeah.
touristy sites. And as we're going through, the bus driver, it's just one of those small kind of tour buses, and there's about 15 people. It was really great. Like
Yeah.
the tour guide knew a lot, and he's telling us about everything, and it was really, you could kind of just sit back and learn. And as we're going through through Loch Ness, he starts talking about a house called the Boleskine House. I think
Okay.
I'm pronouncing that right. I'll just say right off the top, I'm probably not going to pronounce everything right, but I'll try. And basically, he's talking about how this house is known as a satanic ritual home, that it had been built way back when. It was bought by somebody who was a very known occultist, a satanic person
Mhm.
who had bought the house for its very specific the very specific way the house was positioned on the land, where the doors faced. It was
Okay.
important to him that it had to meet certain criteria, and I'll read more about this to you in a second, but this is just what I'm remembering Sandy, the tour guide, told us.
Mhm.
And that he conducted satanic rituals there, and that there was unexplained fires that happened there, but essentially this man's goal was to do a certain type of ritual and ceremony that would open a portal to hell. That was this particular place in Scotland was on ley lines or something like that. It was perfectly positioned for that to be the case through a certain type of ritual and ceremony. And yeah, so that's super cool.
That's
And
great.
yeah, good job, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
That's like hashtag life goals.
I know, like you were determined.
Yeah, couldn't you just take up knitting?
Yeah.
Anyways. So this is what his goal was, and for some reason or other, he did not stay, and he left, and eventually the house had been sold many times. And eventually it was sold to somebody in
What do you? I don't even
Led
know.
Zeppelin. Yep, there you go. Guitarist and producer. So he's not the drummer.
No.
Guitarist and producer
That's why I was
Jimmy
like, I don't-
Page.
What you're talking about?
Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I knew it and then I just lost it. Sorry, it's I'm having a over 50 moment. So Jimmy Page bought this. He he thought it would be a really good place to learn to play music, to chill, whatever, but he didn't actually stay there that much. He had somebody else stay there.
Uh-huh.
And this is the story I heard through the Sandy on this tour, talking about how there was weird things that happened when this caretaker was there, and eventually he left because in the middle of the night he opened his door, and coming down the hallway to him was a burning head that was being rolled like a bowling ball down the hallway. And then apparently that was enough for him. He didn't really need to know more.
That was the kicker, though? Like, that's what got you to leave?
Yeah, and then since then, this is what the guy told us. There'd been mysterious fires happening in that place, whether it's kids or like arson or accidental. But the theory is that from the occult version or the spiritualism side is that when Aleister Crowley left, he didn't close, he didn't undo the spell he had done, or whatever gateway he opened, he didn't close it. And so this place is cursed and haunted. And because of that, fires keep happening. And as recently as 2019, another big fire. And now it's been taken over by a group that are trying to restore it for partly to restore it, but also to restore the history of it, but in a good way. They're not trying to promote occultism. They're trying to show, like, have this be restored as a heritage site, to be about healing and learning and music and art and all those things. And I actually just watched a YouTube documentary on one of the people who's part of this group, and then another I think the other person is a builder historian, but they all have a deep understanding of the history of the house. And I'll link those things in the show notes so people can go read up and watch that a little bit more. But they said, even when they're I won't get into that, because I just want to tell you what the tour guide told us, is that in his the story around this with the new group that was buying it was that they were restoring it so that it could be a mecca for occultism to come and have their place again. And but the people in the YouTube that I just saw, and this was just made in January 2024, so very recently, they said they've really fought with people who are really afraid, and they have no intention of it being a sort of a negative it's a secular sort of mindset around, traditional practices and learning about art and having a heritage home be restored. And they said they've really had an uphill battle with people and their bias and fear around its history, the home's history.
Well, I mean, considering that the history is that long and it's been negative, I could totally understand why.
Yeah. So I'm going to read just what I've learned about it, and it really is literally just from Wikipedia. So thank you, Wikipedia, for this. But I'm going to link a PDF to this article or this Wikipedia page, as well as the YouTube video that I watched. And I didn't do a deep dive into this, so I know there's movies made about this. There's a lot more information, but I thought it'd be interesting, especially since I'm going back to Scotland in this area in a couple months. So maybe, you never know, maybe I'll get an invite.
Maybe
this podcast will pop off and I'll get an invite. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
or no.
The Boleskine House is 21 miles. That is 34 kilometers for us Canadians and everybody in the UK. South of Inverness, on the opposite side of Loch Ness from Milfure, and halfway between the villages of Foyer and Infargigan.
Okay.
Infargigan. Beautiful Gaelic name, I think. The area has a history of strange happenings long before Aleister Crowley moved in. The parish of Boleskine was formed in the 13th century. A Kirk graveyard was built in the parish around this time. A succession of ministers ran Boleskine parish and would travel the area on horseback or on foot in all weather conditions. Minister Thomas Houston, 1648 to 1705, was said to have had the task of hastily laying animated corpses back into their graves after devious local wizard had raised the dead in the Boleskine graveyard. So this was something that the YouTube video talks about, that in the 1600s, this was a parish. This was had a graveyard, and it was a stopover point for ministers and pastors to come and rest. And it was like en route to somewhere else, and so it was quite busy in that way. But there was a story of a wizard that actually was there to do negative things and raised a bunch of dead in the Boleskine graveyard, and these ministers had to like rebury them. Now, whatever that means, right?
I don't really want to know.
I don't know. Yeah, Boleskine House was built on the site of the Kirk, which, according to the legend, caught fire during congregation and killed everyone inside. The house was constructed in 1760 by Colonel Archibald Fraser as a hunting lodge. Colonel Archibald Fraser apparently chose the site specifically to irritate Simon Fraser of Lovat in retribution for his support of the Hanoverian side of the Jacobite Rising in 1745, as Lord Lovat's land surrounded the site of Boleskine. So anybody who watches Outlander would probably know the name Simon Fraser of Lovat.
Okay.
The original hunting lodge was expanded continuously by the Fraser family until 1830. All the rooms were situated on one floor, with 4 bedrooms, a kitchen, servant, and attic bedroom above the kitchen, lounge, drawing room, and library. So, Ricki, one thing is, if it's all on one floor, it would be accessible.
Yeah. That'd be great.
There was even a tunnel that linked the house to the graveyard.
Oh, that's definitely accessible.
For those really quick visits to the graveyard.
Perfect.
You don't want to go outside in the rain. I mean, Scotland is notorious for being wet.
Yes.
Rainy.
You just
so
use the
you
tunnel.
You don't want to pull out the galoshes and the umbrella and go through all that rigmarole.
Yeah. Just go for a stroll.
Reminds me of the creepy door in the bathroom of the old house.
Maybe that's where that door went, was to their own
to their own graveyard. Yeah. So anyways, yes, this house had, everything one could possibly want, from cradle to death. It was all right there.
Yeah.
Crowley purchased the Boleskine house from the Fraser family in 1899. The house at that time was known as the Manor of Boleskine and Abertarf, after the name of the local parish. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Crowley believed the location was ideal to sequester himself to perform a series of operations known as the sacred magic of Abramlin, the mage, taken from a grimoire book called the Book of Abramelin. I'm going to learn how to say that. But do you know what a grimoire is? Have you heard of that before?
No.
Okay, so I can't see you, so if you're making facial expressions, I can't tell.
I am.
A grimoire is a book of, and I only know very basics, so somebody might know more, but a grimoire is generally a book that probably stays with the family, but it's witches, or it's in a nice way. A grimoire would be recipes, medicine, the book of family kind of spells or concoctions, but it is looked at as a sort of a witch or healer would have their spells in there, and grimoires are I think generally passed down in families. So if anybody has our Mennonite grimoire, please, I want to see it.
Yes.
I haven't heard that we've got one, but if we do, somebody pull it out, dust that puppy off, because we want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody knows more about grimoires, and I might be wrong, so I don't know a lot about it, but it would be very interesting to know more about grimoires. But anyways, according to Crowley, in his book of Confessions of Aleister Crowley, in order to perform the operations, the first essential is the house in a more or less secluded situation. There should be a door opening to the north from the room of which you make your oratory. Outside the door, you construct a terrace covered with fine river sand. This ends in a lodge where the spirits may congregate. The purpose of this ritual is to invoke one's guardian angel. It doesn't, I think his idea of guardian angel might be very different than what we would think of as a guardian angel.
I just have a quick question, because you're reading a lot of this stuff that's very negative. Where are these people coming from? And who's I want to buy this house and do evil stuff in it, and it just be a long line of people trying to do weird, creepy stuff in it?
So, yeah, it's a really good question. And I think just from my basic research, there's some weirdos out there.
Yes, but
who
this
do
seems
weird
crazy.
things.
Look at the timeline.
So I know. So even as far back as they can remember, this house has had a very rich history around this type of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, and I can't remember if it's in this article or if I saw it somewhere else, but he was also part of other organizations. You've heard of organizations like the Illuminati or different organizations that are said to be about power and evil and ritual and whatever. And I think he was part of some of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it will go into it. It requires 6 months of this. So this ceremony that he was going to conduct, or this operation as he calls it, requires at least 6 months of preparation, which includes celibacy and abstinence from alcohol. However, it also includes summoning of 12 kings and dukes of hell to bind them and remove their negative influences from the magician's life. Okay. While Crowley was in the process of performing the lengthy ritual, he was called to Paris by the leader of the Order of the Golden Dawn. According to legend, he never banished the demons he had summoned, leading to strange happenings occurring in and around Boleskine House. So I don't know anything about the Golden Dawn. We could do a little research around that for another episode, but that was for some reason, the leader calling him from the Golden Dawn was important enough for him to actually leave his work undone.
Yeah. I mean,
and so he was summoning the 12 kings and the dukes of hell to bind them and remove their negative influences from the magician's life.
It all sounds very interesting. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, the history behind this place sounds very interesting. Like, I'll joke around about, the creepiness of it and all that stuff, but it is interesting. But I just don't understand why so many people over hundreds of years have had sort of the same idea with this place. It just...
Power. I mean, of any, if you go look at anybody who follows these sort of deep, why was he trying to summon the 12 kings and the dukes of hell and then bind them? That's power, right? Yeah. It's some sort of, you're trying to make yourself.
But it's weird that, like the first guy was there and the second guy was there. Like there was no other houses that they could do these things into. And if there was, why weren't they in them? Like, were other people doing it? Like, it just seems like there's so many people who are doing weird things.
Truly. And I guess you got to wonder if, if the legend, because I guess in those days, a lot of it, sorry, I'm just trying to pull my line down. A lot of it wouldn't be necessarily written down. It would be folklore. So if the folklore, or even if there was some sort of documentation that in the 1600s there was some wizard there, then that would stay with it as local folklore, right? Local mythology. So it could just continue that this place is a place for this kind of thing, right? So whether it actually is or not, somewhere, and I'm not sure if it's in this document, it talks about that particular part of Inverness or Loch Ness has some, there's, I'm not going to get this all right, people will correct me, but there is where land is and where there's intersectionality of like ley lines and things like that, some people believe that there's sort of energy lines that cross, and in those places they're extra powerful, right? So that's where they would do ceremony, or that's where they would do, and that's in all cultures. They have that, like there's an understanding of that. I don't understand it very deeply, just sort of a little bit, but it must have been that place sort of had that that had some of those qualities, right? So they were going to that place for a reason, and it didn't hurt that way back when it already had the history of having kind of evil things being done there or magical things. And isn't it interesting that I have my Be Magical cup today?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a place that I'd want to go hang out at, especially now, even though they're trying to do something positive with it. I don't know. With that much
Well, and
history.
it does make you think, it does make you think if there's more to the reason why those types of things are attracted to that place beyond just the folklore and the history, right? You got to wonder. And that's something I just don't really know. But I'll read a little more here to see what else. So he had been drawn back to Paris by the leader of the Golden Dawn, and according to legend, he never banished the demons that he summoned, leading to strange things happening in and around Boleskine House. Crowley became infamous for stories of conducting black magic and various other rituals while residing in the house. One of his pseudonyms was Lord Boleskine. His lodge keeper, Hugh Gillis, suffered a number of personal tragedies, including the loss of 2 children. Crowley himself claimed that his experiments with black magic simply got out of hand. So even he himself admitted that it went too far. Whatever that means, whatever too far means, I'm not sure. Crowley described the house as a low, long building. I set apart the southwestern half for my work. The largest room has a bow window, and here I made my door and constructed the terrace and the lodge. Inside the room, I set up my oratory proper. This was a wooden structure lined in part with big mirrors which I brought from London. He left the property in 1913, moving to a modest cottage for some time in Denny Lonehead near Falkirk. After the Second World War, the house was owned by Major Edward Grant. On November 9th, 1960, it was reported that Major Grant had committed suicide in the Crowleys' bedroom with a shotgun. After this, a newly married couple moved into the house. The wife was blind, and after a month, the man walked out, leaving the woman wandering around, unable to see. Oh, what a prince. What a chivalrous gentleman.
That's nice.
Jeez. Yeah.
That's nice.
That's a quality man.
She's
Leave your blind wife
around,
after a month in the hallways of a haunted house that has, hell portals in it.
Oh yeah.
In 1969, Kenneth Anger, his name is Kenneth Anger, an experimental filmmaker with an interest in the occult, learned that the house was on the market and rented it for a few months. When Jimmy Page heard about this, he bought the house in 1970. Jimmy Page was a collector of Crowley memorabilia who had read a lot about Crowley and was fascinated by his ideas. At the time Page bought the house, it was in a state of decay, and he felt it would be a good atmosphere to write songs. So, back up. So, Jimmy Page, just so everyone knows, is the producer and guitarist for Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he thought it'd be kind of cool to write songs in this place. Nice little, out of the way, up in the Highlands, overlooking Loch Ness, the lake with Loch Ness Monster, just for those of you who might not know. He wanted to, maybe he felt like he'd be inspired in this sort of satanic ritual home, but whatever. Quintessential, beautiful, landscape in the Highlands. That's what he thought he was getting.
I'm sure there was other beautiful places that you could get.
If you're Jimmy Page, you would think that maybe there would be, but I guess he was fascinated by Boleskine and wanted to live where he had lived. So cool. However, after arranging for the house to be restored, he spent a little time at Boleskine, but left things in the care of his friend Malcolm Dent. So when asked why he was chosen, Dent explained, Jimmy Page caught me at a time in my life where I wasn't doing so great, doing a great deal, and he asked me if I would come up and run the place. I never did establish why he fixed on me. When Dent moved into the house, it was a wreck. It had been more or less abandoned. There had been at least one fire there, and parts of the building were missing and had been badly patched up. The grounds which at one time had been very nicely laid out were gone to hell. Although Dent was a skeptic of the paranormal, he soon started to experience strange occurrences. After a few weeks, he heard strange rumblings from the hallway, which stopped when he investigated, but resumed after he closed the bedroom door. After researching the house, he discovered the rumbling in the hall was supposedly the head of Lord Lovett, even though he was executed in London.
Perfect.
Dent explains, above Boleskine, there is a place called Eerie, which is supposed to be the geographical center in the Highlands. Boleskine was the nearest consecrated ground to Eerie, and this is thought to be his soul or the part of it that ended here. So I guess that's what, that sort of, we were talking about the energy or the, the center of the Highlands or the center of Scotland, and that's where the ground was consecrated. Whatever. Okay. Dent also experienced the most terrifying night of my life, he said at Boleskine. He woke up one night to hear what sounded like a wild animal snorting and banging outside his bedroom door. It went on for some time, and it was not until morning that Dent dared open the door, and there was nothing there. Dent added that whatever was there was pure evil. Another friend who stayed at Boleskine awoke one night claiming she was attacked by some kind of devil. Other occurrences, such as chairs switching places, doors slamming open and closed for no reason, and carpets and rugs rolling up inexplicably, failed to deter Dent from staying. Dent met his wife at Boleskine and raised his family there. That's some little weird side note. I don't know. Okay, Wikipedia. Yeah. Nice little place for, mini Ginny, Jimmy, and Millie to run around on the yard. Stay out of the graveyard.
Homestead.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Although Jimmy Page never spent a great length of time there, he did everything he could to return the house to how it looked during Crowley's ownership. For example, he commissioned an artist, Charles Pace, to paint some Crowley-esque murals on the wall. These were based on the murals in Crowley's Abbey of Thelma in Sicily, discovered by Kenneth Anger in 1955. So I'm interested to go look at what the artwork was, because I'm sure there's pictures of it. And then it goes on. The house was put up on the market for £250,000 in 1991, and it was purchased by Ronald and Annette McGilvray in 1992. According to Mrs. McGilvray, when they bought the house, it was in a very bad state. They spent a lot of money stripping it back to the bare walls and re-roofing it. It had 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a huge drawing room, dining room, library, and various other rooms. Although they didn't seem to mention the tunnel to the graveyard.
Did it disappear?
And the house was then converted into a hotel. Oh. Ronald McGilvray died in 2002. He was said to hate any reference to the house's dark past when it was home to Crowley. When asked whether she experienced any mysterious occurrences at Boleskine House, his wife states that she experienced absolutely nothing. I'm a non-believer and didn't listen to all that rubbish. We had a great time there. Following Robert McGilvray's death, Boleskine House was put up for sale again. The new Dutch owners converted the house back into a private residence and used it as a holiday home. In 2009, the 1.9-acre plot on the former estate was put on the market for £176,000 and plans to build a 3-bedroom log house. The sale included 140 feet of the foreshore on Loch Ness. The approximation to 1:40 p.m. At approximately 1:40 p.m. on December 23rd, 1915, a motorist reported flames and smoke coming from the Boleskine house. When fire crews attended, it is estimated that up to 60% of the building had already been incinerated, the flames rising at up to 20 feet high. The firefighters concentrated on the west wing of the house, as the rest of the building had been severely damaged. The owner's business partner and daughter had gone shopping and returned to find the house ablaze. The fire was thought to have been started in the kitchen. However, nobody was believed to be in the house at the time, and there were no casualties. The interior of the house was almost totally destroyed by the fires. Part of the roof and the outer walls survived, but the former owner, Mrs. McGilvray, has said that since the extent of the damage is so bad, it's unlikely to ever be rebuilt unless there's someone out there with an interest in the occult wanting to spend a lot of money. The ruins and 22 acres of the land were put on market for £500,000 in April of 2019. They are now owned by the Boleskine House Foundation, which will restore the house and gardens to their original form and open the estate to the public. A further fire was started on the 31st of July 2019 in 2 buildings on the estate at the same time in a suspected arson. The police are currently appealing the public for any information, so I guess they haven't caught the arsonist. Funny how that works. And the fire destroyed the remainder of what was left inside the Boleskine house. And in December 2019, work was done to clear the fire-damaged material and prepare for building a new roof. The Boleskine Foundation has announced plans to open the house to the public in 2025. The final cost of the Boleskine House restoration is expected to be £1 to £1.5 million. And yeah, it goes on to just describe a few more places where you can see, find interesting information. But that is the Boleskine house and the interesting things that go on there or went on there. But I think it's interesting that after fire, arson or not, whatever, everything that remained of Crowley's house is gone.
Well, it's just
even
weird too, though. Like
parts that were restored.
Yeah, but like, just for so many similarities to happen throughout the years too. Like it's the same sort of situation. Yeah. I don't know. It's not a place that I'd like to stay at. I don't know if we converted it into a hotel. I wouldn't have stayed.
Yeah, I think I'd love to go see it. I probably would love to go see it, but I don't know if I want to stay there.
No.
You know.
I think checking it out at noon, is fine with a group of like 35.
When you have lots of time to do fun things before you have to go to sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go check it out and then leave. Like we're good. I don't need to experience anything at all. Not even a little bit. We're good.
So you're not going on a ghost tour to New Orleans with me, or
if it's at noon? Yeah. It might take us a while to get everywhere, but at least we're safe.
We'll just do one thing at a time.
Yep. 35 other people, because
yeah.
Nope.
Nice tour guide.
No, I don't.
Well, I find it very interesting. I don't know what I think about a lot of that stuff. I certainly have come to a place in my life where I believe things like that happen.
Yeah.
And people will go to great lengths to, whether it's harmful or not, to find what they consider power, So
I enjoy hearing about it and watching stuff on TV, but that's about as much involvement as I would like. Like I would never be a ghost hunter or, stay in an abandoned asylum for any amount of time. It's not interesting that way to me. But yeah, tell me about it. Read me a story. We're good. That works.
Well, we can do that if people like it. We can find great stories.
Yeah.
When I was 17, because it was, I think it was, I was in grade 12. Our band, at school, did a trip to Ottawa, and Ottawa has the oldest jail. Maybe in Canada, but a very old jail, and they'd converted it to a youth hostel, so you could go and we stayed in it.
Yeah.
And they had story like the last man hanged in Canada was hung there, and so they tell you all about this, and then you stay. And of course, we all have our rooms, and they're in jail cells. Like our rooms are in jail cells, and you're not supposed to go up to the top floor. And of course, we're all going up to the top floor. I'm sure they tell you that just to creep you out, but they know that you're gonna. But when we go up to the top floor, they have all the cells are in there, and the cell doors are open. But they're the big old cell, heavy, iron bar, and then on each end of the hallway is another door, that closes and locks, like cell doors. So you could be trapped in with all these cells, and so we're all up there. We're creeping up there because we think we're not supposed to be. You go up there, and the only lights they have are these blue lights that are kind of just casting this very creepy glow, and I swear that some of the doors moved and like creaked, and I'm sure it's all set up to be scary like that. But
or
yeah,
it
that
just
was pretty
happens.
creepy. Or it just happens because that just happens.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I think I had.
That's what I know for today.
Yeah, I think me staying at the retirement home with ghosts was enough for me. That was
just these nice little old ghosts. You don't want to see anything demonic. No. You're just happy with the little paper mache flower spinning around. That's enough.
That one I really can't explain. I really think that one was crazy.
I think that's fair enough. I think I like I say, I've never really experienced anything that I would consider super. I've been scared, but not from an experience specifically. So I can't even say that I know what you feel like. So I'd probably be scared too. I'm just happy to read the stories. That's enough.
Yeah. Not actually have it happen to you.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I'm.
Well, should we sign off? Tell people, let us know if you want more stories like this or you want something else.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll send Ricki on a ghost tour and film it and see what happens.
No, I think I'm good.
She's good. Yeah.
Nobody needs to ask or recommend that. We're good.
We're not there yet. No. We're going to ease her into it. I don't want to either, so we'll just talk about it from the safe side of our computers.
Yeah, absolutely. Works for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. As they say, rate, review, subscribe, share this with somebody who might want to be one of our cousins in Granny's basement.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Have a good night or good day. I always say that.
Good night, good day.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Good noon.
Yeah, good noon.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.